Okay, good evening. This is Debbie Davis. So I just want to do a follow-up because it's just getting, every day over at America, it's like we never know what's going to happen. And there's all these storms but I just wanted to explain. So I'm staying at this friend of mine's place who I've been friends with, John, and I have permission to be here. And I came in last night from being gone, out about errands and whatever, and my stuff was scattered everywhere. So I'm not like, half of this stuff is his stuff, and some of his mom and dad's stuff and whatever. They're trying to go through it, so it's a mess right now. But I didn't know who it was. I don't know. So now I know for sure it was his sisters, because they took some of the stuff, the family photos and different things like that. So, and I never have told anybody that they couldn't come in and get things. I haven't said a word to them. Nobody is preventing them from coming in and getting things that are part of the family. John never said that. I never said that, but it's supposed to go through the probate procedure before you just go in and start taking stuff. And on top of it, so they didn't inform me they were coming, and then they just started throwing all my stuff around. So that's illegal at this point. And them just coming in, and they have my number. They could have let me know that they were coming, but instead they just come right in and start throwing my stuff around. And so I wasn't sure if it was the police or what. I come in and I see all my stuff thrown around. So anyway, that is the way that they act. And I'm going to explain more about the history here. And there is a reason why John is staying away, or there's a reason why he's afraid of his sisters, and why he hasn't talked to them. He does not want to talk to them. And there's a very good reason, because that's how they act. Okay. And on top of it, there's a whole history here that is even more sinister. Okay. So I want to explain this tonight. So John's brother was a state representative named Chris Tjornhom, in the 80s here. So this was Christopher Tjornhom. He died, May 31st, 2012. Okay. He was a state representative for 8 years in the Richfield, Minnesota here. Okay. It was the same district where now Ilhan Omar. Okay. This guy was on the Republican side, and he died very mysteriously at age 53. His wife found him dead on the couch in the morning. Okay. It says right here, Christopher Tjornhom of Chanhassen passed away suddenly in his sleep on May 29th at the age of 53. It doesn't, and it's always this same chapel home too, Washburn McCready. They're like all over here now. Like all the small funeral places are like replaced by this Washburn McCready place. Okay, they creep me out. Okay, so this guy was basically gonna run against a Democrat. Okay, and then this happens. Now, any kind of person, anybody. You don't have to be conspiracy or anything. Anybody would have found that strange, because he wasn't sick. He was a 53-year-old healthy young person. You don't just drop dead in the middle of sleep. Okay. So that was the first. Now he was the power of attorney over the estate here. And his sisters did not like that his father put him as power of attorney. And we know this now. John and I have talked about this. Okay. And they didn't like that Thomas put Chris as power of attorney. And then I did a whole video about how his dad Tom died. I mean, yes, of course he was 92, but he was real health conscious. He had a chiropractic business here in Bloomington, Minnesota. You can still find it online, called Tjornhom Chiropractic. Okay, and he was there for 50 years. He was the very first chiropractor in Bloomington. In the whole state of Minnesota, I think. He was the very first one. So It says here, and this is not what happened. It says here, Thomas Tjornhom, 92, passed away peacefully at the Veterans Hospital. No, that is not what happened. I was John was here, and he was here taking care of his mom, and then he told me that his dad had to go to the VA. He was getting these bladder infections, and the hospitals are not very good. Like it was getting really bad for me too. Like anytime you had any infection, they didn't want to give antibiotics. They said they've been over prescribing, and they got to be really careful now what they prescribe. All this crap, and they didn't want to treat the veterans, and so he kept having these issues with bladder infections, as John said, and it finally got so bad that he had to go in or whatever. It was probably septic at that point, or who knows. But anyway, but it could have been treated. It could have been treated. And he, so John sent me over. I did a video about this. A veteran was murdered at the St. Paul VA, and you can look that up on one of my videos. I did a video about this because John sent me over there, and it was the printout where he said he wanted to be resuscitated. Okay, so his sisters are in the room there. They have so John had, I believe, power of attorney over his dad and his mother, because he was here all the time. He was the main caregiver. So but anytime that he wasn't there with them, then the sisters would be considered what's called secondary power of attorneys. Secondary. So that's how the paperwork read that John showed me. Okay, so then so John couldn't be there because he was here, and so they became at that point secondary power of attorney, and they told the doctor to not resuscitate. So they were involved in their father's murder. I mean, I don't know how else you can say it, because they agreed. They went along. Okay, first of all, it wasn't even a VA doctor. It was a third party doctor from the U of M named Dr. Khalil, and he was from Pakistan. Okay, and John was, he still hasn't gotten over this trauma, and then he had the trauma happen to his mother, which also involved his sisters. Okay, so that's why I have to do a whole history here of what's been happening. We have very dangerous people. I believe they're witches. And we have a huge issue with the witch covens in St. Paul. They are very, very dangerous. And I believe that his sisters are witches. And the witches here are in cahoots with the witches in LA. The whole P. Diddy thing probably. This is a very high level witch coven here. Okay, so I want to warn people. This is, and a lot of times they can work in cahoots with the physicians, and and different things in the hospitals. The witches infiltrate the hospitals, and they become doctors and nurses, and there's stories about these type of things where where like a nurse or somebody works, and they can very easily kill people in the hospitals if you have somebody that is like that somehow gets a position in the hospital. There's stories where, there was like 100 murders or something at this one hospital, and they figured out it was like the same woman that was working the night shift. And like really after 100 people, there was something I read after John's mother died. We did some research, and we found other stories of like a couple different things in a couple different hospitals that happened where literally like nurses and doctors, they're witches. And they're killing people in the hospitals. And there was like a whole, like 60-minute thing about it or something. And so, but this is real. These are real stories. And I was a witness. I'm the one who brought the paperwork over to the floor. He said, I can't get over there. Can you bring this? And I handed it to the nurse. And it said, I wish to be resuscitated. So I did that for John because he couldn't get there. And then I find out, that he died that very night. So clearly they did not resuscitate. And he was on the phone with the doctor, Dr. Khalil, And he even told him they didn't even try to resuscitate it, just openly. They openly just told John, and he said, well, we handed you the paper. Why didn't you resuscitate my father? And they said, let it go, John, let it go. That was the words from the doctor. Let it go, John, he's 92. Okay, so that's what happened there. Okay, let it go. Well, this was a directive, doctor. Do you not know how to read a directive anymore? These hospitals are scary. Okay, and so then that was in 2022, his father died, May 1st, 2022. Okay, his sisters were secondary power of attorney. They were, they had to give the okay to the doctor to not resuscitate. They were there. So this all involves these same people. Okay, they didn't like that Chris was power of attorney. This is his sisters, Sarah and Lisa Tjornhom. Okay, and John has very good reason why he does not want to speak to them. And that's what I was trying to explain to the police when they were here, that he doesn't talk to his family. This is a very dysfunctional situation since his mom passed, and the whole thing takes a while to go through probate, whatever. And they're not supposed to be coming in and taking stuff until it goes through probate, but they have been taking stuff. John hasn't taken anything. He was going to just wait for it to go through the procedure like it's supposed to in the will. They think they're above the law. Okay, then we have the situation where Nancy passed away at the M Health over here in Edina, February 24th, 2025. John brings her in. I was there the first day that he brought her in because I was staying here with him because I was trying to help him because he was injured himself. He slipped and fell or whatever last year. So then all of a sudden we get sent out of the hospital. We get removed from the hospital. Now that's illegal. We found that out. His sisters had us removed because once John is out of the picture, or if John can't be at the hospital since he's the main power of attorney, then his sisters become a secondary power of attorney. Okay, so that is what they wanted. That's why now we know why they had us removed. We didn't do anything wrong. We were trying to see. She went in there with a lung issue. Like there was a lot of lung things going on around. Just like this was February 24th, just February. There was a lot of lung issues going around, and we thought she was just going to be treated. And all of a sudden, they have him removed, and he wasn't able to go back to the hospital for 5 days. And then when he finally gets back there, he finds out his mother hasn't been fed for 5 days. Okay, so they were basically trying to starve her to death. This M Health here is scary. The M Health, they seem to be very involved in murdering elderly. How else is it to say it? How else can you say it? And they have their own security. That's illegal. In case you don't know, the security, you can't remove somebody who's power of attorney. So what the security and the M Health and his sisters did was 100% illegal. But nobody is holding these women accountable, and nobody is taking us seriously. There's a history here. So he gets back there and he requests a feeding tube. And he said, well, my God. And then they lied to him and said, well, we tried to put one down her throat, but she aspirated. And then he finds out that that's not even true. So basically she had been starved to death for 5 days. So she was already really weak. And then they said, and then he said, well, I would like a feeding tube with my mother. I'm back here now. And he tries to call the local Edina. I talked about this. He tried to call the local Edina police, and he said, I need to get back there. I am the power of attorney. And then he never got back to him. The main sheriff here, the main Edina police. Anybody that knows anything about the law knows that you can't remove somebody who's power of attorney. That's illegal. He paid like $1,000 to have the proper paperwork done, and he was power of attorney over both of them, because he was the main caregiver. You can't just have somebody removed that's the main power of attorney, that's been their main caregiver. And that's what they did. And that's what they did. And the police allowed it. And the security at the hospital allowed that to happen. Okay, so then they become, once again, his sisters become secondary power of attorney. And she was given some kind of a pain med. And she was already having issues breathing. And the pain med, whatever it was, slowed down her breathing so much that she died. So basically, whatever they gave her, he still doesn't know for sure, killed her. And his sisters were right there. His sisters were right there. And they knew that she was being given something. And they did not tell. John said they just walked in and started giving her something. They didn't even tell him what it was or anything. And they said it's a pain med. It'll just help her. And he didn't know it was going to kill her, clearly. Otherwise, he would have stopped it. But he said, so he sat there and just watched his mom die right in front of his eyes. So that is what happened there. And then, and before and I talked about, how his dad was a chiropractor here. And there was a situation here where he had to write letters to his own daughters here because they were involved in getting their own father removed from his lease where he was the chiropractor for 50 years. Because apparently somebody was willing to pay something more for the room, and he wasn't really practicing anymore. But John and him were trying to maybe train a new doctor or somebody to at least do the insurance claims or something, and they were going to still try to utilize the lease. I mean the room, since he'd been there for many years, and they were going to maybe try to keep some kind of a thing going where he could at least do insurance claims or work with another doctor out of there, or they were working on that. Okay, and his sisters, apparently there was somebody else that was willing to pay more for the room or something. He wasn't really practicing much anymore, and he could barely keep up with the rent. And they worked, his own daughters worked with this guy named Casey Miller, who was a crooked agent of some kind. He wasn't even from here. He was from Arizona. And they had somebody else go in and because they were offering more money, and he was getting behind. I mean, he'd been there for 50 years, and his own sisters were a part of getting their own father removed from there. And it was devastating to him because he'd been there for 50 years. And so this was a note that John found. Dear Lisa, and this was from his father. Dear Lisa and Sarah and Ted, Casey Miller called today demanding that I leave the building. And he said he was calling for you. They said you are trying to get me to move out. Evict. I spoke to a attorney and whatever. As long as I am something and paying rent, there is no legal way he can evict me. Yeah, he was still paying. They just got a higher offer. He wasn't even behind in rent. Yeah, he said, you can't evict me. I have been paying. Just because, so somebody was willing to pay something more for the office space. And so this guy named Casey Miller worked with his sisters, and they had their own father evicted just because somebody was willing to pay something more for the room. Like, what are you getting a cut? Sarah and Lisa, what are you getting a cut on the rent? This is what they're capable of. And they did this to their own. Okay, these are very dangerous people. And that's what we're dealing with here with these witches. Okay. I will need more time. I need time to recover. Okay, because he was sick at the time. Yeah, but his own, yeah. Okay, so this is a note from his dad to his own daughters. that got him evicted of a 50-year lease. And he wasn't even behind in rent. Somebody was just offering. These are not nice people. These are very dangerous people that will do whatever it takes for whatever, the buck or the money. There's three deaths here, and there's actually more to the story. But and then this guy, he was on the Republican side, and now ever since, this whole district has been Democrat since his passing. So, there's motive here. There's motives for these murders, because they want the property. This is more than just a little like quibbling with your sister or something. A little like this is a criminal matter. So I wanted to explain how serious this is and how dangerous these witch covens are. There's reasons for us to believe that they're witches because of some of the things that I know about this area and the way they've acted. Okay, and the things I've had happen to me and things I know. So it makes us, feel pretty certain that they're witches and they're part of this coven here. So I just wanted to explain more about this whole history here. I mean, and if nobody's holding them accountable, if the police or nobody are holding these witches accountable, what else are they going to get away with? It's scary. It's scary. And so, so that's why I've said, I believe it has to be the military involved in just, doing whatever to regain order, because it doesn't seem like the other agencies are doing anything. Okay.